Now, there are occasions in which we need more time, occasions when we want less time, or occasions in which we want time to stop. How do we deal or handle time insecurities? Do you feel like you're always having to rush to get from one place to another or to do things? Then perhaps you're experiencing an insecurity of time. So, what is time insecurity? Well, I'll define it as the difference between the time that we need, want, expect, or anticipate, and the time that we perceive that we actually have. In other words, it's the difference between the belief of the time that we should or could have and our interpretation of what we do have. Now, there are occasions in which we need more time, occasions when we want less time, or occasions in which we want time to stop. So, my wife and I have 3 young kids. At one point, we had to wake up early in the morning, get them all ready for school, and sometimes they were lazy, so we would have to really urge them to wake up and do things. Then drive to 3 different schools, and then I would have to go to work, come home, pick them up, and then drive them to various lessons. In addition to that, I had to see some very difficult patients. I had to do administrative stuff for my business. I had to do the lawn work and cleaning the dishes and laundry inside the house. Then taking care of myself was hard because the only time I had left was at nighttime, like after 10 p.m. So it was difficult because I was exhausted. My schedule was extremely tight. So anytime that something did not go according to plan, for instance, my car breaking down, everything just became chaotic. Now, the majority of my life was dealing with not enough time. But sometimes there's too much time. For instance, last year, my brother was getting married, and it was a destination wedding. Now, I am very close with my brother, and for a very long time, he was struggling to find a romantic partner. And finally, a few years ago, he met one, and they set a date for a year out and to go to Mexico. Anyways, 2 weeks before the vacation or his wedding, I was really stressed out, and I was just looking forward to that day so that I could get on that flight and just completely relax and see my brother get married. But during that time, I was thinking to myself, come on, just get over with, just move. I need to get on that plane. Now, I realize I'm lucky because my insecurity of time is me looking forward to something good, and I want that time to flow quickly because I want to get to something that I want to do. I've met people who want time to go by quickly because they want to get out of something bad, like a toxic relationship or chronic illnesses. Then there's other times in which I want time to stop altogether. Last year, I introduced my kids to fishing, and we were at this campsite with a private lake, and my kids were catching fish that we were going to eat. They were catching our dinners. My 2 older sons were standing there just peacefully waiting for the fish to bite. My wife was standing by to help them out in case they caught anything. And my youngest one, he was just trying to figure out how to release the reel to cast the rod. And it was just a perfect quiet moment. I didn't want to have time pass by because the next day I'd have to go back to work and everything. I just needed time to stop. When there's a time insecurity, we feel it in our bodies. So, for instance, when I needed more time, there is a tension in my chest. My stomach is churning. My face shrinks and it feels warm. I'm always wanting to do more. My body is just really excited to have to do things. When I want time to pass by quickly because I'm excited about something that I'm looking forward to. My energy goes up. My chest fills out. My head, it sort of like expands a little bit. And my stomach is like up and just very, very jittery. And when I want time to stop, and I don't want, I'm not looking forward to the next moment in time, then there is this tension. It's a very soft tension, and my face sort of droops down a little bit. It's a little bit of a fear that I feel, a fear that the moment will end. Now, if these time insecurities last for a long period of time, or we have one that's really, really big, like a work stress or planning for a major event or something like that, then it can affect our minds, our bodies, and our relationships. So how do we deal or handle time insecurities? There are 4 general strategies that we can use. Now remember that it's a difference between what we expect, want, need, or anticipate and what we perceive that we have. Because if we have enough time to do what we want, then there's no problem. So the first strategy is to change what we want, need, expect, or anticipate. The second strategy is to change our perception of what we actually have. The third one is to do something to bridge the difference. And the fourth one is basically to accept or feel through that moment in time. Let's take a look at changing our beliefs about what we want, need, expect, or anticipate. But first, we have to be aware of what we want, need, expect, and anticipate, because some of those beliefs are subconscious. For example, when my family first came to Canada, we all had to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to deliver newspapers, be home before 7 a.m. I would go to school, my parents would go and work, and then in the afternoon come home and eat dinner and do our homework, and then by 7 o'clock go and clean office buildings. Time was always tight because we needed to work like that to pay for our own housing, food, clothing, and everything like that. And on top of that, to send money home to our relatives in Vietnam. Sometimes a person who was born and raised in North America would ask us, why do you work so hard to send money to other people while you yourselves have barely enough money to live? And so we would say, well, that's the same question is, why do you spend so much time going to a hockey game to watch a bunch of players that you don't even know? Well, the answer to both is that we are culturally conditioned to value those things. In Vietnam, we are culturally conditioned to value family. And in North America, people are culturally conditioned to spectate a game together. These things that we care for, like our values, helps us to endure insecurities for a very long time. But they also create in us these rigid ideas that we actually need that amount of time. For many years, my family sent a lot of money back to my relatives in Vietnam. And after about 16 or 17 years, we finally went back and visited. And we saw that they used that money not because they needed it for medical expenses or anything like that. They used that money for extravagances, like having a bigger house or buying extra cars. That's when we realized that we didn't need to send them that much money. So we didn't need to spend that much time to work. That awareness helped us to change that expectation of ourselves and of the time we needed. Another way of reducing our need for time is using our resources, like friends and family or money. So for example, when my wife and I began to meet the parents of my kids' classmates, we started forming a community. So if I was stuck at work for some reason and I was late picking up my kids, I did not want to be the last parent picking up my kids. They hate that, by the way. Kids hate that. And the teachers don't like waiting around either. So I would just text or call one of the other parents, and they would be able to pick up my children and drive them home, or at least stand around and wait so that I can arrive a few minutes later. And the teachers knew that I knew the other parents, so the teachers were okay with that as well. This was great. I no longer felt the need to have to rush to school because of that community. Now, for those people who have a lot of money, they can also use Uber or get a chauffeur to drive the kids around, which means that there's no time insecurity in that respect. Unfortunately, my wife and I don't have an unlimited amount of money or social connections. We're kind of shy people. So we have to use other strategies, like changing our perception of the time that we do have. So before I was able to form a community with my kids' classmates' parents, I would always be rushing around. And so I would have to stop work at 3 to race to one school and then to another school, and I would be weaving in and out of traffic. I don't recommend that. I'm lucky that I didn't get into any car crashes, but by the time I got there, huffing and puffing and saying sorry to the teachers, I realized that I was rarely the last one there. Other kids would be waiting there still for their parents. So I realized that everybody, all the parents, have to get there, and there's a lot of traffic delays that affect everyone. So I was able to realize that my time insecurity was the same as everybody else's, all the other parents. So now I think to myself, I might be late, but then so are other people. So I do have time. The other important thing that I realized to help me perceive the amount of time I have differently was in understanding that all things will end. So that time I had to wait before my vacation or before my brother's wedding will end. The time that I have with my kids while we're fishing will end. Rushing to get from here to there, that event will end. So I have a choice. I can either be upset or fearful that time is going by too fast or too slow, or that it's going at all, or I can appreciate that each moment is one of a kind, and I can just appreciate that moment and allow it to lead to the next moment. Now, I can always bridge the gap between what I need, expect, want, or anticipate, and the time that I perceive I have by doing something. So for example, my wife used to cook on Sundays because we had to drive the kids to different lessons on Saturdays, and so the only time she had in bulk was on Sundays. So by Sunday evening, she would be done cooking, but she would leave this huge mess in the kitchen, and I had to clean that up because I can't cook, or at least nobody wants to eat my cooking. And if she's going to be cooking, then I need to do my part in the family and clean. So I would be tired because it's been a long week, and then I would have to do all of these things, and I would have no time to just relax and watch a show or something like that before bed. And I need to clear all of that up. I had to clear all of that up because the next day my wife would have to be preparing lunches for the kids. The kids needed that space so that they can wash their own dishes and whatnot. It was very, very frustrating to me. So I said, hey, are you able to cook on Saturdays instead? I will take the kids to lessons myself, and then you would have that chunk of time where you could just cook. So I took on the responsibilities of taking care of the kids and their lessons on the Saturday, she would cook on Saturdays, and then all of a sudden, I had all this time between Saturday and Sunday to clean. I was able to bridge that gap because I had enough time now. My perception and my beliefs were matched. I had plenty of time to do what I needed to do. Now, sometimes there's really nothing we can do to affect our wants, needs, expectations, and anticipations. There's nothing we can do to change our perceptions of the time we do have, and there's nothing we could do to bridge the gap. So in those instances, all we can do is accept our situation right now. Now, earlier on, I talked about the sensations in our bodies when we feel like we have too much time, or we feel like we have too little time, or we want time to stop. Acceptance means that I think to myself, this is what I'm going through right now, and this is the state that I'm feeling right now. So those sensations can be very uncomfortable if we're constantly thinking about, I need more time, I want less time, or whatever it is. But if we can just sit down and pay attention to the sensations in our stomach, our chest, our throat, our face, our shoulders, our arms, our legs, and we describe them to ourselves. Oh, I feel a tingling, or I feel a bubbling, or I feel a tension. Describing those sensations to ourselves can actually help us to not feel as fearful or feel uncomfortable with them. And when we can do that, we feel calmer. And so that time insecurity doesn't bother us as much. Over time, if we develop the skill to watch and describe the sensations in our bodies, then we're able to expand our capacity to withstand a huge gap in what we want, need, expect, or anticipate, and what we perceive we have. So if you understand and practice these 4 different strategies, changing our beliefs about what we want, need, expect, or anticipate, changing our perception of what we do have, finding things that we can do to bridge the gap, or to accept and just feel through that time insecurity, then we can expand our capacity to handle any time insecurities. What strategies do you use to handle time insecurities? I'm curious to know.